So they're suffering from ceramic ignorance is what you're saying.
Yeah, everything is just like, oh, zirconium oxide, you know, or something. But, you know, we don't really get deeper in terms of like, what does this mean? You know, we need more marketing.
I like calling it fancy burnt sand.
Yes.
Yeah. All I can think about now is 1 carat gold. That's all I ever want in my life now. 1 carat gold.
1, 2.
We could just be doing this for like 90 minutes straight.
Yeah, we all had a discussion on whether or not the clap was actually necessary. The clap in for the audio is what the type of clap I'm talking about. Welcome to aBlogtoWatch Weekly. Our dear host, Rick, is not with us this week. He shall return. A special pardon to the listeners of our live segment. I am not set up to do that. He has the special magical keys to the YouTube live part of it. So we love you, live listeners. We believe that we will return with a live segment next week. We do heartily apologize. Rick will have to pay the price, whatever dear price it is. We're gonna just talk about watches this week. Maybe a little bit about the industry. I'm not as good with the games and things like that. But before we start into the stuff that we've published, David just shared with me a video that was published by Casio G-Shock's YouTube
Breaking
channel
news.
A few hours ago, actually, about a new close to top tier model. This is the MTG B4000. So I'm gonna watch this now. I've never seen this before. 3 minutes and 34 seconds.
It's a watch along.
It's called a developer interview.
Yeah, make sure you mute the video because then otherwise if it blasts our ears.
So you can hear that?
It has subtitles. Yeah, it's in Japanese, so.
I feel like people should hear this.
Yeah, okay, let's try. Let's see if if that works. We're not hearing what you're hearing, so it's all good.
Oh, good. I thought you were. That'd be awkward. So
Putting
it's
different
supposed to
materials
be
together.
an interview. Oh, there is an actual interview.
Mm-hmm. Ish.
Oh, I know this guy. Okay, I remember the crazy, weird gold thing.
Mm-hmm. That was so damn cool.
Okay, I don't want to ever be bored. So I'm fast forwarding here. Okay, I see it. Oh, this is the one. Yes, they showed me a prototype of this. They're like, what do you think? It's supposed to be really thin and lightweight. Okay, even G-Shock has stopped developing actually new features. They took a big pause on that. I feel like the whole watch world doesn't want to develop new features. Just new cases.
Maybe we have enough features, don't we? I mean, especially in the G-Shock.
No, have you seen a smartwatch face from Android? There's so many indicators on the dial. I love it.
So much stuff I don't want and I don't need and I never use.
I'm just saying, it's not that it's attractive. It's definitely not pretty, but I feel that we have this desire for data. We are data hungry, David. Ripley, aren't you data hungry? I'm data hungry.
Yeah, I think isn't that how we ended up with a perpetual calendar? Like, you have to be so coming off of a bender or something to not know what month or if it's a leap year. It's a cycle of 4, you know. It takes a real type of person to look down and go, oh, thank God it is January. So, yeah, we want more of that data, you know, and you get the whole perpetual calendar. So much of that data is something that we probably already could keep track of, but we want it on the watch. So I think more is more, you know. Let's have the G-Shock do everything.
Smartwatches have brought some new data that I didn't know that I wanted to know that now I want to know, like the decibel level in the room or the air quality. I never knew that I was concerned about the UV exposure that day, but now that I know this information, I can't live without it. Same thing for the leap year. It didn't bother anyone until it became an indicator on their dial. Then they really had to worry about it.
Well, I, for one, can tell if a room is too noisy and if the air is bad.
But don't you want to know by how many decibels, though? So you can say to people, no, at 50, I'm okay. But we're at 54 right now. Do you have any shame?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be nice if your watch could, you know, confirm that it smelled funky in a room? Like, you're like, oh, it's not great. And you're like, oh, well, actually, yeah, there you go. That meter shouldn't be down there.
Yeah, like the watch as an environmental sensor tool, I think is only going to get more important. Like, forget like tracking your own body and stuff like that. Like knowing what's going on in your environment. Like we have these sensors, we have our ears and our eyes. We'll take extra ones. Our brain isn't like, oh, I'm okay at this many senses. Like, if we have extra ones, if our watch can give that to us, I'm thinking about a chronograph. It's because we are fundamentally incapable of determining if two intervals are the same, right? Or agreeing. Like, imagine if David, you or me were trying to like agree as like how long an hour felt like. We'd get into a fist fight. We couldn't agree. You're like, no, that felt like an hour.
We can't even agree how long Watches and Wonders was. Like, what, did it feel like 7 days, a month, 2 days?
That's why we have watches, so that there's this, it's like the referee. No, guys, this is an hour. Like, oh, really? Okay. So we can all agree. Anyways, more data, the better. Casio, I love your multi-layer carbon cases. Amazing things. Need more layers. Also need more complications. Let's move on to stuff that we've been publishing on aBlogtoWatch. David, you felt that we needed to return to the article that I published last week about how when watch brands change their prices, they fundamentally change their customers. That was a very popular thread. Lots of people saying a lot of things. What were you feeling were some of the residual sentiments that were worth talking about again?
Oh, I just want to tell people that, you know, whenever we run a story like this, you should pay attention to the story itself, read it, and then check the comments. Because sometimes what happens is that it's the other way around. People just start, you know, chit-chatting in the comments based on the title of the article and on whatever they think the article is about based on the title, and then it's a whole big discussion. And sometimes it's off, sometimes it's on point. It's just you have to read it to be able to comment on the full story there, because I think there is a lot to be said there.
Ripley, I know that it's obviously something that we've talked about internally, but now we've talked about it publicly. I've been told by various parties that this article has been shared and stuff like that. Obviously, that's great that people like to read what we're publishing. For you, what were some of the most important things for both consumers and industry to remember from an article like that?
I mean, I think it can be easy for a brand to just kind of look at consumers entirely as just data points and, you know, what can they do to hit their sales targets and everything. But the thing to remember is, you know, sure, it's all flexible in terms of numbers, but at the end of the day, as the title accurately describes, you know, the price point of that brands operate is sort of tethered to the people that buy the products at those price points. And so while it can be easy for brands to just say, oh, well, you know, we're going to be selling more, so we're going to be increasing the AOV of our products, which means that we're going to have these higher prices. And this is going to, you know, make it all balance out and we'll make more money from year 2 to year 1. But that's not necessarily, you know, mathematically, sure, that might be how it ends up shaking out. But at the end of the day, there is the human element to this where it's people making the decision to purchase these things. And it isn't necessarily an entirely mathematic-based thing where if person can afford it, they will. Now we get into, you know, personal biases regarding how much they want to spend, whether or not this is, you know, a comfort level for them to spend, even if they have the means to spend it. And so, you know, I don't think that the products are inseparable from the price points they operate at. And the same goes for the brands themselves. You know, the brand's identity and the customers that it cultivates are very used to a certain type of price point. And that's, you know, even if mathematically it shouldn't be as sensitive to fluctuations in price, at the end of the day, it will be. It is, you know, you can see this done at much lower price point of items, like a loaf of bread or a beverage company decides to raise its price by a few dollars and people go, oh, maybe it's not worth like $12. I was happy at $8. And then, you know, we're not talking about people unable to buy it at $12. We're just talking about people unable to rationalize that same product at $12.
Thank you. I will reiterate the point that, in my opinion, the hardest thing to do as a watchmaker these days is not have a beautiful design or to actually make something work. It's to have something that you release after you've produced it, after you've been able to recoup some of your costs at a price that other people want to buy it for. And brands, I find, quite often want consumers to be apologetic for, you know, complaining about prices, like, but it took us this much to make it. Well, consumers don't care. It's a competitive market out there. The whole way you get someone to pay money is, wow, I'm so impressed you did all that for the price. Take my money, I want one. It isn't, okay, anyone could do it if they put that much money into it. So the consumer is not going to forgive you for exceeding this idea of what they want to spend. And it, of course, different consumers can afford different amounts of money, but that's the name of the game. It's making something that feels like wow for the price point. And again, if you just have a great watch, but it's too expensive, you're not winning that game. That's what a competitive marketplace is. If there's 10 brands out there and there's nothing better for less, then yeah, I guess you're doing fine. But that does not represent the industry today. And then going to something that David said, you know, there aren't other places out there that I'm aware of in the watch space that are having these types of conversations. I specifically look for those types of things that are not being talked about yet that I think need to be talked about. So, you know, continue to go to us for my columns and those of David's and Ripley's and others who were attempting to examine those issues that not only you as a consumer should be thinking about, but the industry should be talking about, because they get themselves into trouble. They are lemmings at times. I don't want to, you know, disparage anyone, but David and I especially, since we've been doing this pretty long, have seen brands just walk themselves right off a cliff strategically. You know, years later, be like, oh, what were we thinking? It's not even worth saying I told you so, because probably the people who made the decision aren't there anymore, right? And that's sort of the dark side of these brands existing for so long, because like maybe the brand itself is durable and can exist for hundreds of years, but no management team can seem to last that long, right? Couple of years, maybe a decade at most, but like I don't know. It's right, guys. Like the brand name can survive, but the management team, I mean, wow, it's like American politics. That's how fast it cycles through.
Wouldn't it be funny if anyone could be a CEO for only 2 times 4 years, and then that's it. You have to have a new CEO.
I mean,
that would shake things up.
In the last couple of months, what have I said? I said I recommend professional magicians, illusionists, to be the CEO of watch brands. I said hire the most senior watchmaker. If you're just there long enough making watches, you're bound to make a few good decisions, right? Hire the biggest introvert at the company. It's a problem that needs a solution. So speaking of conversations that others aren't having yet, an article that I also wrote that got published, it was, the name of the article is, according to Ariel, should investors be interested in the rise of modern watchmaking consortiums? Difficult to put a term on these groups of companies that are working together other than watchmaking consortium. And then as funny as it was, I wasn't really able to mention any of them because some of them are official organizations. Some of them are loose associations that don't even have names. And like the very first comment, I think, was someone who basically just named a bunch of them. I was like, what they name here? 10 of them. Wow, 10. Great. I was like, thankfully someone did it. It's difficult to talk about something when there isn't really terminology associated with it, right?
Yeah. If you can call it out by its name or refer to it, then that's where the discussion should begin.
Now, we've all been noticing this, right? It's sort of like the brands all want to be independent, at least on a marketing level. Like Patek Philippe, I think, or Rolex is really the kings of these. Like, oh, we do it ourselves. It's all us. It's all us. We invented everything. But we know it doesn't work that way. So brands over the last several years have had this big push to go independent. We do everything. But then they realize, like, oh, wait a minute, guys. That's not how this industry works. It's a bunch of specialists that do little things and work together, suppliers and various types of partners and things like that. Because watches require a bunch of different skill sets and types of parts and stuff like that to be done. So what we've been seeing is this really organic collections of people and personalities and types of companies get together. And you've noticed this, but this is still pretty new, right, David? Maybe the last 5-10 years or so?
Yeah, but what's really funny is that I think that the biggest enemy of these corporations come from within, and it's usually the investor. If you look at the most successful brands out there, they are the ones who've been the furthest away from the investor mindset and from those who want return on investment every quarter or every year. If they feel like if these brands make decisions based on a sense of having the time to let these come to fruition, to test them, to show confidence as opposed to making haphazard decisions, introducing products and discontinuing them, then doing something else, then pulling this movement and then the other movement and then developing this and then talking to that and then this ambassador and then that. And if it's all over the place all at once, then that's when you lose traction, because these sort of purchases, they take time. These messages take time to arrive to the customer. Sure, there are people who buy a watch on a whim, but then they also had potentially years or decades of impressions from these brands, and they decide, okay, I'm attracted to this brand or that collection or whatever else, right? And if you change your course every quarter or every year, then people will just get confused. And most of the brands that we see change their course quite so often, they are the ones who have to deliver some sort of return on investment above all else.
Well, I think I want to move away from the word investor for a second here, because I think what's important about these consortiums is much of the time there's no actually ownership relationship between them. Rather, they're closer to a joint venture where they're all sort of related to the same goal. One company wants to produce parts, another company needs the parts. One company is interested in selling watches, another company needs watches sold. They're helping to fill in gaps, very practical gaps that are needed. Yes, in some instances, a company that produces watches might have a whole ownership of a brand or partial ownership or things like that. But much of the time, these are a bunch of individual entrepreneurs. Even if some of them own one another, individual entrepreneurs trying to grow their own businesses, but having sort of a degree of cooperation, as opposed to sort of an ownership situation, right? We agree that that's sort of the foundation of this? Okay.
Yep.
There's head nodding going on for those that can't.
I want to let Ripley speak a little bit, not just me.
Yeah, Ripley, you feeling like you want to talk about consortiums?
I think it's interesting. I mean, having a group input on something where I think watchmaking is also sort of a unique industry to look at, because I struggle to think of under other industries that so happily advertise the inefficiencies that it takes to create the products. Like, rarely do you hear in other industries that it took us this long to do it and it didn't need to, but we chose to do it this way. And the end results are basically indistinguishable, but it took 4 months of this man doing this to do this. That's such like a intemporal, inefficient, side of the production that is all in terms of the storytelling and the brand identity and, the value added to whatever luxury product. But that's just not productive, or how, a large conglomerate of like electronics or something like that would operate. And so I think it's interesting when you get multiple different companies or individual entities all having say over something which isn't governed solely by just the efficiency of production. And it's more in the realm of brand ideals or tradition or image that are dictating it, where you then have these, a consortium of based around something that isn't necessarily just what's the most efficient thing for, production and investors and all of that. You can either have very differing points of view or very similar ones, but it's not necessarily the same as something where it's just managed solely on what's going to be most efficient in creating this product.
I'll add this final element on this. This is what I think is the most interesting to me. This person that mentioned these 10, again, there's other ones, but each of these 10 collectives are all trying to do the same thing, which is produce, watches that can be sold. Yet the interesting thing is they all going about it completely differently. Yes, there's some shared steps, but the types of companies are working together, the places where the money's coming from, how the watches are sold, where the movements are coming from, who's sharing the work, how they're doing it, it's all totally different. And for me, that's what's fascinating, because I fundamentally believe that the future is going to require new types of arrangements of companies that make watches and companies that assemble watches and companies that make parts than some of the legacy types of relationships. Some of these big corporate groups, their whole structures don't really make sense. So while we all agree that there's going to be demand for watches in the future and they're going to be made and serviced and invented and all that great stuff, the right business formula for doing that is really anyone's guess. And so each of these is experimenting in their own way. Some will work, some will not. As you said, they have sort of a built-in agility that works well. I just think it's a fascinating era right now because it's not just individual companies to follow. That's actually too easy now. It's very easy to follow a brand you like. What's actually more challenging is to follow a style of making watches you like, a region of the world, a particular type of technology, which is the basis of something. So I just think it's an interesting thing in terms of the evolution of the industry itself. And I think from a consumer's perspective, the output, the actual watch, its quality, its price point, its design is going to rely heavily on the structure of where it came from, which is often much more complicated than just one brand. So we'll approach this topic again in the future. Let's go to a news item here. A watch I haven't seen yet. I don't think we saw this at Watches and Wonders. It's a shame. This is the Hublot Square Bang Tourbillon 4-day power reserve watch. And when I look at it, I actually have to almost squint to see the tourbillon. It looks like it could easily not be a tourbillon. Is this, Ripley, one of the situations where Hublot took one of their like higher performing movements, like maybe cut the performance in half, put it in a smaller case? Or is this actually a new mechanism?
Well, I mean, they're going to designate it as a new mechanism. I'm not entirely certain how much of this movement has been scalped and, which assemblies are pulled from other Hublot tourbillons. But this is the first square bang to feature a square movement. It's the first non-chronograph square bang, So if you look at all the other ones, all the square bangs are basically chronographs, and they all are just the standard Unico movement shoved into a square case. And so if you look around at the dial, you can see the circular calendar disc. You turn around on the back, it's visibly a brown movement in a square case. And so now you have a square tourbillon movement. So it's the first non-chronograph square bang, but it's also the first to have a shaped movement. So they've, maybe the tourbillon and stuff has been pulled from another Hublot caliber, but it has a new caliber number. The bridges have all been engineered to be squares and right angles to kind of go with the right angle motif of the watch. So it's technically a new movement.
David, does this share anything with the Mecha 10 movement?
Yeah, I'm actually Googling this movement a little bit and just looking at it. I'm not sure. The Mecha 10 is so unique. Let me check real quick.
It doesn't have any of the power reserve indicator, the linear gear. It's a much more traditional...
escapement is a different place. It's a different thing.
Hublot has been getting very excited about having slight variations on other movements or styles they have. And we sort of get into this mode where like, is that a new movement? Is it just new bridges? Like, I guess that's good, but it's also confusing.
It's new bridges in the sense that it's we've seen this hand-wound movement with the power reserve in classic fusions and stuff. I'm just looking at those. On Chrono 24, you can pick one of these up, with a tourbillon and a power reserve at 9 o'clock for like, I don't know, 30 grand, 25 grand sometimes. It really depends.
The Square Bang has been popular. It's been a good seller for Hublot. I think each of us, when we put it on, we recognize why, because it's kind of cool looking. But if I recall correctly, like it was sort of made fun of when it first came out. It was just, they're Santos, if you will. But right?
It's not difficult to make fun of. Especially the black with the checkered pattern and the screws and everything. It really, I was smiling when I was looking at it because it brought me back to the good old days of Our Time podcast. And this is what John would call a robot turd, basically. And it's basically sort of that. It does have robot turd qualities to it, which is hilarious because clearly a lot of effort has gone into it. It's probably nice to wear. I love the shaped ridges on the case back. So So overall, it's a cool thing. I think the world of watches is richer because this is in it, even though it does have that vibe.
You know what I want to know economically? I want to know who is that consumer that $100,000 is their sweet spot. They're like, I want to make sure that my watch is 100,000, 200,000, 300,000, too much for me. Like, how much does that person have to make these days? What is their lifestyle? I know there's not just, of course, one person, but there's a whole bunch of watches that just really love that $100,000 level. This particular one is $105,000. Let's just say it's, out the door of the store, maybe 95,000, make a little deal. Yeah. Okay. But like, there's this, do you guys agree that a lot of brands just sort of have stuff that hovers around 100,000? And like, I want to know the profile of the customer that this is perfect for. Do we have any ideas? And do you agree that this is like a segment unto itself? The $100,000 watch.
Maybe it's just so they can say, oh, it's a six-figure watch. And then that completely obscures how much you've actually spent on it. Like, once you hit the six-figure territory, it's like, oh, you've definitely spent a lot of money, like a non-logical amount of money on the watch. But the delta between 100,000 and 900,000 is like basically the rest of the high-end watch industry. So you can say, oh, yeah, it's a six-figure watch. And it just kind of completely polishes over what any actual meaning of that sentence, because you don't know whether you're talking about 105,000 or 905,000. And it's, at this point, it's just almost becomes meaningless. Everyone knows it's super expensive. People who feel like that's the level they play with can be like, well, it's a six-figure piece, but it completely removes any stigma because you don't actually know how deep down that rabbit hole of six figures you've put up for it.
That sounds very much like new money. Is this nouveau riche kind of mentality we're talking about?
Look at the robo-turd aesthetic. I don't think this is the old money type of watch.
I'm just clarifying.
You never really own a rectangular square bang in carbon. You merely look after it.
You're not stirring your morning cappuccino on the terrace of your Villa d'Este.
This is where people's like, my car's electric, my watch is not.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is basically the Cybertruck of watches in a way. It looks modern.
But like the opposite way. Like it's impractical, but in a very different way.
It's impractical. Yes, exactly. Very expensive.
The Cybertruck of watches. Here's the thing. I like these, and I like the Cybertruck a lot less. So not a big fan. Oh gosh. At first, I was open-minded at first. I don't know about the rest of the world, but Los Angeles, I feel, is like the Cybertruck capital of the planet. Okay, there's I think more here than anywhere else. Ripley. I mean, I guess maybe I saw one in Manhattan, but LA has a lot of them. So I've had a lot of time to really examine my feelings around it. It's probably the 50th or 60th time I saw someone that had like a vinyl wrap on it on some obnoxious statement or something. I'm like, yeah, you know what? This is an ugly car. Moving on, I do like the Square Bang a lot better. I reviewed a watch from a brand that, David, I know you like, the VicenTerra AstroLUNA T1 Aventurine. You've done some of these before. A really satisfying watch. The AstroLUNA, this one begins with the Vaucher base movement. The watchmaker builds a module around it that includes a moon phase indicator and sort of a GMT indicator. Both of them use these turning orbs. This particular one, as the name implies, has the Aventurine dial on it. And, I feel like I should be screen sharing. See, I'm not Rick. I don't remember to do this stuff. 1 second here.
Yeah.
When did you, you were the first one to review these, David. How long back did you get your first one to review?
Like a decade ago, I think.
Yeah, it's been a while, right?
Because it started with the GMT3 Volume 2 that I reviewed back in 2014, July. So Volume 11 years ago. Yeah, that already was a Volume 2. And that had this barrel-shaped or tonneau-shaped case, which was sort of ungainly. It was a nice object, but just, not that good looking on the wrist unless you had like really thick wrists, but that's okay. And then one son, who's the founder of this brand, is working at it alone. He followed it up with the Tycho Brahe that I reviewed in 2018, so 4 years later. And that already had 66 comments on it back then. And when I was reviewing that, I was contemplating whether that watch, the VicenTerra had Tome 2, which is a weird name, or Tome 2, was one of the best watches in the world. And I thought, as I was wearing it and I had it around, that, it might just be right up there with the best watches. And at that time, 2018, we didn't have quite this onslaught of very impressive watches from micro brands like Christopher Ward, another micro brand, but a relatively small brand, and a bunch of actual micro brands, that we've seen come up the last few years using novel materials and designs and whatnot. We've seen that. But this at the time was like out of nowhere. It's one of those few watches where you have to have a genius approach, where you have to follow through, where you have to find the right suppliers, chase them down for the quality and for the price point. And I'm just checking the price on that. But it was in the four figures, so much less than the one that you reviewed. It was 4,300 Swiss francs, not even that, 4,259 Swiss francs.
Are they still a good deal?
Yeah, 100%, yes. Yeah, absolutely. I'm not even sure if they're still making that. But this new one that you reviewed is much more expensive, but then again, it's more complex. It does not have a base ETA, it has a base Waché. And to be honest, and you will very rarely hear me say this, but I think that was too cheap at 4,300 in a sense, given the amount of work and the proposition, and the whole thing that went into it. This at 20K, this is up there, but you're getting a lot of watch for it.
I think that's a fair assessment, that you're still getting a lot of watch for the money, because we've seen watch prices go up. I firmly believe that the watchmaker who founded this brand has had to contend with rising costs on his end a lot, and that has been something that he's had really no choice but to pass on. But you get two straps. One of the things I liked about this watch was, in addition to both straps, you get both a traditional pin buckle and a deployant. Right? Like, I'm someone that only likes one, and it's like he just included both. He's like, just choose the one you want. Like, I love stuff like that, because it's not that expensive to add those extra little parts. Some of the bigger brands, I mean, oh my God, they'll charge extra money for like a little pin or something like that.
Yes.
Like,
hundreds
add the
and
extra
hundreds of
strap,
dollars.
add the extra deployant. It's a little piece of metal. Like, you're charging in the thousands and thousands and thousands. You can't do that. And this guy, I mean, look at this beautiful polished titanium case, interesting shape. This obviously wasn't some type of parts bin thing. I think that what I love about watchmakers like this is, because they're in Switzerland, because they kind of know the system, they know where to go to get all the right stuff, right? If they want nice looking parts, and I want to preserve that part of the economy. They're never going to have like big advertising budgets and stuff like that, but they're going to be able to hustle and be on the ground and find the people that can make their watches as wonderful packages as they are. So yeah, so we even have the video up already. So this is the again the VicenTerra AstroLUNA T1 Aventurine. Now, so aren't you glad I'm doing the screen share now? We're totally forgetting that. This was sort of a popular one here. The Formex Essence Ceramica skeleton, and of course, ironically, this in a weird way fits in with the article I wrote about watch prices going up, because on the one hand, Formex has been a brand that people have been going to as they've been leaving other brands that became too expensive, right? Because the base Essence is about, I don't know, $1,500, $1,600, and steel really offers like a ton of watch for the money. And then here we have it in a ceramic case and matching bracelet. It's lovely. Skeletonized movement. I could, take it or leave it. But I mean, the overall package here is close to $4,400. So it's funny that even though Formex is a company that people go to as other ones price them out, now Formex is definitely pricing out some of their own customers, because this is, more than 2.5 times as expensive. I liked it. I thought it was comfortable. The 41 millimeter size is right in the middle between the 43 and the 39 that they've done before. Thoughts? Is it too much money? Is it enough money?
No, I think, as David mentioned, that you look at the standard fare, like just with like the previous brand we were discussing, amazing value on the low end side. But, when you scale it up to 2, 3, 4 times the retail price. This still seems to be good value for what it is, respective to what you would otherwise pay for a full ceramic watch on a bracelet, Swiss movement, and all of that. So it is a measurably different bracket than the $1,500 of like a standard Essence. But when you compare this to other full ceramic watches, it still feels to proportionally offer you, that much more within its respective price that you would get from the steel Essence at like $1,600. So I think it's quite nice, and it feels good in the hand, which is something that I don't say about every ceramic watch. Sometimes, whether it's the finishing, the geometry of the parts, the angles of it, it just doesn't feel necessarily all that nice. This feels really good in the hand, and even the ceramic micro extension clasp, it feels very substantial. Good surfaces on it. I quite like these.
Yeah, I think the most interesting thing here, to me at least, is the fact that it's not a question of whether or not this is good value. That's irrelevant. I think that the whole point is changing your customers, because if Formex has attracted a crowd of people who look at Formex as a brand that they comfortably spend $2,000 on, or $1,500 or $2,500 on, then they will seek those products, those new updates, those new whatever propositions from Formex in that price category. And if they stretch to $4,500, then people will be like, well, how am I supposed to spend twice as much? I like the brand, I like the design, I like the collection. I just simply cannot afford this, at this point. I'm not going to spend $4,500. And if I were, then wow, I have to suddenly look at Tudor. I suddenly have to look at a bunch of Seiko, a bunch of other brands that I've never looked at now that I have this larger budget. So it's not as simple as increasing your prices and giving a good value proposition, which this one is, because then suddenly you're looking at a completely different crowd sometimes. And, doubling your price, even if it's twice the watch, that is exactly the tricky situation that your article described, Ariel.
Okay, I like ceramic as a material. The moment I learned about it as a watch case material, I was into it. But I don't feel that everyone shares that opinion. In fact, I'm sometimes not shocked, but I'm sort of surprised that not as many people share my enthusiasm for ceramic watches. Why I like ceramic, I'll repeat, is because of the scratch resistance and durability. It's never going to fade. It's really basically not going to scratch. Over time, the color's not going to wear, and it's not going to look different underneath it. If you don't do something dumb from a shock perspective, like hit it, it'll basically look the same forever. Guys, help me understand why other people aren't as excited about that as me.
Excited about ceramic?
Yeah, you see the comments, or other times people are like, I'm not, ceramic's not my thing, or it's too lightweight, it's not lightweight enough. People are really into the weight of ceramic, which seems completely beside the point to me. I don't know. Maybe you guys don't have the weird sensitivity to overhearing this stuff. I'm just weirded ceramic out. Yeah. All right.
I like ceramic very much, especially if it's treated well, if it looks nice. Because sometimes it's this mishmash of things, and sometimes it's second grade ceramic. Sometimes I feel like
sometimes it's just blue.
It's blue. Well, and then if it gets colorful, then that's a whole other kind of worms. But yeah, overall, I think it reacts very nicely to different surface treatments. It's nice to wear most of the time. I've never been bothered by its weight. It's light, but not too light. It's not as light as titanium in my experience. It's an interesting wearing experience. And the fact that, sometimes what happens is that you really grow to love a watch, and you are like, wow, this is my watch. I will keep it forever. And only ceramic at this point offers you the chance of cleaning it and it looking like as it did when you first bought it, even 10 years from now, or 15 years from now, 20 years from now. And I think that's sort of a time capsule of things or of sorts. And I'm really intrigued by that proposition, from ceramic.
You don't hear super titanium in the corner screaming, but what about me?
I was just going to say, maybe there are some coatings, yes, but I'm not yet convinced that super titanium holds up quite so well as does ceramic.
But standard ceramic is okay. Super titanium, standard ceramic, oh yeah.
Yeah, would it be better if we call it hyper super ceramic?
If I have a watch brand, I'm going to go the opposite with crazy names. I'm just going to have everything sound very basic.
Lame ceramic.
Basic gold. 1 carat.
That's
Ripley,
actually funny.
Do you have anything to add about the desirability or lack thereof of ceramic?
I think ceramic's a harder one to understand for people because it doesn't have the same vernacular surrounding different grades that's commonly accepted with like steel and titanium. Think about like the pedantic details that people obsess over between, grade 5 and it's grade 2, but grade 5 stronger. Most of the time when brand, like look at Omega, they use both grade 5 and grade 2, and it really comes down to how they wanted the watch to look. Did they want it to be dark and matte? Okay, they did grade 2. Did they want high polished elements? Grade 5. You know, that they have clearly have the.
It cannot be as simple. That has to be a conspiracy.
Yeah, clearly, this is a company who has the ability and margins to work with both, and they do work with both. But then you have people being like, I would never pay that for a grade 2 watch. It has to be grade 5. Yeah, oh my God, it's going to feel the same on the wrist. Did you want it to be polished or not? And then you see it was steel. It's 904L. It's oyster steel. It's all going to be, we're talking about negligible differences in terms of the surface hardness or corrosion resistance or the luminosity of the metal. It's all steel. But people, this does matter to people. Is it tin bronze or aluminum bronze? And then we hit ceramic, and we just don't have that built-in vernacular for enthusiasts to obsess over. And so it's like, is it blue ceramic or black ceramic? Well, I've heard some ceramic can break. Well, is this the inferior ceramic that's going to break if I knock my lug into it? Or is this a different ceramic? Is it sexy proprietary ceramic like Cerachrome? Or is this the same ceramic that my teacups are made out of? And I think people just don't have that same enthusiast-driven vernacular to dissect the ceramic as they do for various alloys. And so it's harder for people to get excited about it when it's just ceramic rather than grade 2, 5 hyper durable ceramic, as David mentioned, or basic ceramic. We just don't have that for them to get excited over one versus another.
So they're suffering from ceramic ignorance, is what you're saying. Yeah,
everything is just like, zirconium oxide, or something. But, we don't really get deeper in terms of like, what does this mean? We need more marketing.
I like calling it fancy burnt sand.
Yes.
Yeah. All I can think about now is 1 carat gold. That's all I ever want in my life now. 1 carat gold.
Speaking of watches that are more expensive than the last ones that came out with. I remember the very first William Wood watches that were like a few $100. Now we have the William Wood Dunkirk watch. This is an evolution of their sort of themed watches. They did the fire exit one, which was, fire themed. This one, I'm sure there's something related to firefighting. This looks more boat themed to me than anything. David, do you know what a Chadburn is?
A Chadburn? No.
A Chadburn.
I have absolutely no idea.
No, Ripley? You a Chadburn enthusiast?
No, it sounds painful, or it sounds like you don't have the right type of athletic supportive underwear or something like that.
I see. It's a very weird name. It doesn't sound Chad or Burn like when you actually hear what it is.
Engine order telegraph.
Yes. That is what this dial is inspired by. A boat control Chadburn. Which supposed to tell the engine room down below what to do. So the captain's up above and says things like, do this, do that. It sends a message below. So it's a form of a messaging or a control device.
That would have been fun, just to call it the Chadburn. That would have been like, what? I quite like this one. I like the bronze and the red, but every single piece of text on it and the whole design, it just reminds me of a boat accident. It's just, everything is just, I look at it, any text I read is just linked to like something horrible happening. Is it like, pump water, stop pumping water, stop, engine, whatever. Everything is just basically a description of an accident or something that was like.
Does it remind you of the glorious age of pre-flight transportation across water?
Yeah. Steamy.
Before there were bridges, there was the Chadburn.
Why would I want to see the decrease speed? Oh
I
my
like
goodness.
one that says finished with engine. Like, I'm done now.
That's the best.
Decrease speed and just stop. But finished with engine isn't entirely stop. It's somewhere between stop and decrease speed. I love it. That's the halfway thing. Finished with engine. Like, it's on its very last. You're kind of winding down.
Yeah. I think, like, I feel like, maybe somebody in the comments can let me know if there's any other field of life or hobby or whatever that has quite so many wonderfully niche propositions as watches. Like, if we were into shoes, would we be talking about shoes worn on Dunkirk or, in the engine room of a boat or a ship 80 years ago? I don't think we would be. Do they make shoes like that? No, but we make watches that pay tribute to that. It's just so random. And then it costs almost $6,000.
Coin and plate collecting. The commemorative plate or coin. They're all about celebrating something.
You can put whatever you want on a coin, but like a shoe or a watch.
You can put whatever you want on a watch dial, apparently.
Apparently, yeah.
Stop pumping water.
Why would you? And we haven't even looked at the case back yet.
What does that have to do with Dunkirk? We're about to find out.
I like that it's loomed.
There we go.
That's cool.
We'll remember them. I mean, a lot of people died at Dunkirk. That's true.
That's authentically depressing, a case back for that.
Was there a firefighting boat there too? Maybe.
Probably. We're pleading ignorance here, but
I feel like everything British, to be sentimental, has to remember a fallen soldier.
Isn't a firefighting boat? I mean, it's in the water. I feel like those are
soldiers marching. You see that?
Yeah, we thought it was grass.
We thought that it was like grass, but it's not. It's soldiers.
No. Oh, that almost looks like a lovely little boardwalk headed down towards the shore.
They're marching to their death.
But
they're going to be
bombed
and mined. And there's also sharks in the water.
Of course. Probably not. But it was horrible enough without sharks, But there's a watch for that too. I mean, Uli Snowden just launched a watch to somebody who lost a leg to a shark last week. So I guess, that's it. Water is dangerous, and
this is what I call a regional flavor. Not being British, none of us truly understand this.
No, we really don't. And I don't understand how it can cost so much.
But we can say Chadburn again.
Okay, that's cool. William Chadburn.
Chadburn should be the name of the model.
If there's someone out there who is truly touched by the Dunkirk, let us know, and let us know why. We want to know. I want to understand more about the feelings when they on this watch. There's some good ideas here for sure. I mean, the sort of like old pipe side lugs there, fun stuff. $5,400. It starts to make the expensive Formex look like a very good value proposition. It's funny how this is all relative.
What is the red bits of the case made out of?
I don't know actually, but I love to think that it's just painted like those old pieces of plumbing on the street.
Well, that's what I was
like
thinking.
A fire hydrant.
Yeah, like the red fire extinguisher. it's iron or chrome alloy or something, but it's painted bright red. I mean, I quite like the way it looks. I would need to sit down and read for 30 minutes to figure out more about Chadburn and Dunkirk and all of that. But I think from just a visual perspective, it's quite an interesting piece.
And speaking of visually interesting pieces, this is the latest flavor of the Tag Heuer Monaco split-second chronograph produced in collaboration with O'Shea. This one in
camouflage
titanium. That sounds like you're stuttering or something. Titanium, which is basically crystallized titanium. I like crystallized titanium. It seems to be a hot thing. People like titanium. People are getting bored of polished titanium. Now, is everyone going to want crystallized titanium? I think
want crystallized
this is going to be the
everything.
hit. Okay,
Anything
there you go.
is better crystallized, basically, at this point.
Probably, except your blood.
1 karat gold.
1 karat crystallized gold. See, sounds more exciting.
You see?
Sounds way better.
Yeah.
Do you think,
I'm confused.
I'm glad that Tag Heuer is doing this. I'm glad they're sort of owning the story of crystallized titanium. It is harder to do. I guess I'm just saying, they've done the bunch of colors of ceramic. They've done, steel coated all these different ways. Titanium, yes, can get a lot of the same treatments and stuff like that. But is crystallizing it the next way of keeping titanium sexy?
Apparently.
Enough brands
I
have been
wouldn't call it
trying it.
sexy at all. This is like freckled titanium. It's not that there's anything wrong with freckles, but this, especially this case side shot, it's just so odd in so many ways.
I mean, look, if there's anything I know for sure about textures of watch cases, it's very much a matter of taste. They're all sort of weird delicacies that some people are going to love and some people are going to hate. But we've seen so many of case textures, whether it's a physical texture or a print or something like this, from a coined edge to this cyber camouflage, whatever you want to call it. It's one of those things you really love it or hate it. But I definitely feel that it helps. Like, we love having essentially the same watch in a new texture. It's like wearing a new skin. It's such an easy way for brands to make new products, and people genuinely treat it like a new thing. Does this cost more than the standard one? I hope there's not some crazy premium. Let me see.
I was looking at that, and I think it costs the same, which makes the original ones kind of bad value because these are so much more exciting than the launch editions.
I love how rather than saying it's a good value, you're like, oh, the other ones were overpriced?
All of these are, in a way, I think. I'm not sure where this price is coming from. Looking at the movement, looking at the case.
You can't pay too much for time, David. You know that.
That's okay. That's fair. I'm just not sure what is it that's keeping these from being 45 grand and not 145. I'm just not sure where that extra 100,000 is coming from. I have no idea.
Wait. What's an extra 100,000?
Like these.
It's a Hublot Square tourbillon, basically.
Yeah, I think these are basically like all of these high-end Monacos are just the commercially available versions of what was supposed to be their only watch piece the last time that was a thing. And I remember seeing these when we went to the Only Watch preview and thinking this was quite a very elevated take on the Monaco. And the case back of these is actually one of my favorite things. It's just this big sculpted sapphire thing. And it's quite interesting and dynamic. It really is like the Michael Bay Transformer version of a Monaco. But I think if these were introduced without that Only Watch concept as the way they were, first marketed to us, I think this wouldn't be quite as expensive. But you know how any of the Only Watch pieces that then end up having commercially available versions, you can't sell the Only Watch piece, have it anticipated for some six-figure price, and then roll out the commercially available version at $45K. So I think they kind of were stuck with a high-end price. But this is so curiously expensive for a Monaco. I'm not sure who's the person who wants to buy a Monaco and was like, yeah, I love the Monaco, but I actually really want like a hyper-modern Hublot-looking Monaco for six figures.
Yeah. I wish it was 15 times more expensive or 20 times more expensive for the same buy.
And didn't really look like a Monaco at all and was like the Hublot version of a Monaco. I think most people who want a Monaco kind of want the not vintage inspired, but sort of more of that classical shape. This is super, super technological and modern and, to the point where you're not even really sure what some of the things protruding from the case are.
Yeah, I'm not going to sympathize with the Only Watch auction nonsense just because something goes for stupid money there. I don't think brands should bring something out for stupid money too. I mean, if Tudor sells something for 500K there, then can they not launch something similar for 5K? I think they absolutely can, and they should. It is what it is. I hope Tag does well with these, but I think they should do better to justify the price and to bring back. I mean, if you look at 10, 15, 20 years ago, what Tag was doing in terms of crazy nonsense, it was really, really out there, very difficult to replicate. This, to my eyes, does not really look unique or difficult to replicate.
I think we explained earlier, without knowing it, what these watches are about. Like, this is the only, as far as I know, Tag in the $100,000 plus watch club.
Well, other than those like diamond avant-garde, like the $300,000 Edda with the pink sapphire winding
so I
crown.
guess those off-catalog ones, maybe they have some of those. But for the most part, like, this is the one. And Tag Heuer has a lot of VIP friends and stuff like that. I think now they feel this pressure, like we have to have $100,000 plus watch to give to those people. You know, I think that's why they have this pressure all the time. Let's cut off about $150,000 and look at another Monaco. Now, I remember when I first started looking at Tag Heuer Monacos, Heuer Monacos.
Close call.
I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, they cost about, I don't know, at least half of what they cost now. They were expensive back then. You know, the Gulf has always been a popular colorway. Every couple of years they come out with it, and it is very pretty. It's just a great way of celebrating fossil fuels. But now it's $10,000. And I'm wondering, is there $5,000 more watch in here? Is there $2,000 more watch in here? It seems like the same, you know, the base ETA, or maybe it's the Certina now that they have the module on there. So the the pushers on the other side. It's pretty, but am I missing something about where the $10,000 goes?
No, I've also been feeling, I've always liked the Monaco. Back when I was in college, I used to look at them and think, yeah, maybe one day, but they're 2 to 3 times as expensive as they were back then. And it kind of is Tag's most loud watch. You know, the Carrera is probably the most famous of their chronographs, but it's a little bit more generic looking. The Monaco is super, super identifiable. But I think part of why Tag's just making these increasingly more expensive versions is they're really trying to more assert themselves. I mean, look at all of the F1 sponsorship that's going on right now. You don't want the premier F1 sponsor, the pinnacle of motorsports catalog, to top out at $8,000. So I think, that's how we have $150,000 version of the Monaco, which I don't know if anyone actually asked for $150,000 Monaco.
Do they have to?
but it would make sense.
You don't even have to ask.
Yeah, it would make sense if the brand had such an offering as the sponsor of F1. So I feel like some of it's just that, as the brand's image dictating these higher end offerings rather than actually a desire from the public for a $10,000 or $150,000 version of the same chronograph that they previously would pick up for like $6,000.
So something curious happened at the same time they announced this. The other more expensive Monaco split-second chronograph, and there was some other one, I forgot what it was. But they announced that now Tag Heuer is the part of the name of the Monaco Grand Prix. So it used to just be like Monaco Grand Prix. Now it's the Tag Heuer Monaco Grand Prix. Mm-hmm. And I hate to be so cynical about this, but this goes after months of everyone telling us how much money Tag Heuer had to spend on sponsoring Formula One. Obviously, LVMH owns it. It's the one that paid for it. And now they're like doubling down by putting their name on this other race.
This is not a new thing.
I know, but I guess my point is, like, are we paying for that in the watch prices, like, directly? Like, it seems
you always
kind
are.
of.
I mean, even last year when it was still Rolex, the Rolex would be the one of the major main sponsors of the event, and then there would be a couple of Grand Prix, throughout the year that would be called the Rolex whatever Grand Prix. Actually, the Hungarian Grand Prix, for example, was the Hungarian Rolex Grand Prix, right? So they were the title sponsor of whichever race.
Sure.
So maybe it's part of the deal or something like that.
I know it's not new, but it's like, I'm just saying, is it not sort of a slap in the face of, like, you're not paying for the latest watch technology, you're helping to underwrite that sponsorship that we felt like we really needed?
But that's never new. When Schumacher's Ferrari said Marlboro on it, you were not paying for the latest cigarette technology. You were buying Marlboro because it was a cool brand, and that's why you wanted to smoke it, not because
it cost $10,000 a pack or a carton.
They cost you way more than that in the long run.
Okay.
So.
Maybe what bothers me about this is that the Monaco was named the Monaco because of the races in Monaco. I'm assuming this is like a revisionist approach to history. Like, we're gonna call the race in Monaco the Tag Heuer Monaco Grand Prix, just so 50 years from now someone can be like, yeah, is the place named after the race and the watch, or vice versa? Like, it just seems a little bit silly. Like, no, the watch is named after the race. Just keep it that way. Don't put the brand name now part of the race. That seems a little bit too
Rolex
complete.
Daytona 24 hours. You know?
Yeah, this is back to like the la blah, blah, like where you've just added it needlessly. Just keep it the Monaco.
I can't fault the watch, but I can fault the 10K price tag. I guess, you know, looking at it, I'm looking at this wrist shot from Jake. That's the first picture in this article, and just that one picture would sell me this watch with the white shirt and everything else, just the right amount of color, white stripe. It just goes so well. The whole thing is just wonderful. But wow, 10K for this movement, I would be like, no, thank you. I'm not shelling out 10,000 for such a movement.
I just had a really weird idea of revisionist history. What if in the future James Bond movies are called Bulletproof Secret Agent that wears Omega watch?
Maybe. I guess, you know, that could
That's
be a
going to be the new title of the movie.
Yeah. But you would have to call the Seamaster Bond Edition Bond movie or something like that. You know? It's just like some stupid stuff.
Well, other than this being a titanium case and a dial, is there anything actually
Grade 2 titanium?
Wow.
Wah, wah. But yeah, is there something else that I'm missing that makes this
That low octane titanium, you know.
low octane?
Well, it's one of many things with the Gulf colors on it. And, you know, that's probably, what, $2,000 a stripe?
Yeah.
Yeah, precious blue and orange ink, I guess.
And if it's 10K, then just do something to the case, like add a polished veneer somewhere or a bevel or like something, because this bead blasted style that brands are doing sometimes, it just looks so damn cheap. I feel like it literally is someone sitting there just blasting the whole thing, and I guess it looks cool. Well, of course, because you don't have to pay attention to anything.
About the Monaco, I was recently at Tag Heuer's museum in La Chaux-de-Fonds, and I was examining some of the traditional Monacos versus these newer ones. And I have to say, the older Monaco cases are cooler looking. And I challenged Tag Heuer's, like, you want to do some actual, you know, retro re-releases? Come back with the original Monaco case. It's far more interesting looking. I think it actually merits a $10,000 watch. We'll see what they do.
Or the movement, just bring back the caliber 11 where it's like a micro rotor integrated chronograph with the rotors sandwiched between in the middle of the movement, you know?
They're calling this the caliber 11. Isn't that enough for you, Ripley?
That is, it's just so strange to me. That's just so like cynical. Me naming something a sandwich and then giving you a salad, where it's like, what? This is just, we already had a name for that, and this is not that.
Look, I hear you. I think a lot of people would like that to come back, but every single time brands put money into a movement, they punish the community for like a decade afterwards, where they force us to pay for it.
That's true.
So it's like, do we really want that? Because we know what that's going to be like, okay? It's going to cost, basically, Bochet's going to make it. It's going to cost $100,000.
Exactly. Yeah, then every Monaco is every single Tag Heuer Monaco. At least we forget the brand is indistinguishable from the location.
Well, we'll see. So moving on to a different end of the value proposition line. Ripley, you wrote about this one. This is the smaller version of the Certina DS Action Diver. It's 40.5 millimeters. I reviewed, I think 43 millimeters. I like this watch a lot. I imagine that this is basically just a smaller one, or is there some other element that's different?
Yes, precisely. It's a smaller version, but the cool thing about this one is they're taking these new 40.5 millimeter versions of the DS Action Diver to debut the new DS Action Concept Extreme Shock Resistance as the formal name of the technology.
That's a lot of action.
Oh, there's so much action, so much DS action going on with this. So Certina's DS system is not a new thing at all. It goes back to the late 50s. It's basically describes them making a durable watch in terms of water and shock resistance. Obviously, water resistance, we're all familiar. You have a bunch of gaskets at the junctures of the crown and case. The shock resistance is a bit more interesting. Historically, they've mounted the movement in sort of like a elastic type of movement ring. This sort of expands upon that concept. So the movement mounts into the middle case with this, you know, this thin nut-shaped ring. There's also, similar to like a Faraday cage, there's a layer that sits between the dial and the movement itself. All of this is supposed to make this more impact resistant. And I mean, it's a little bit of a thick watch, but at the same time, this is just a very incremental approach. It's a 40.5 millimeter version of what they already made. You can even get it in titanium for a pretty modest premium on a bracelet, still under $1,000. But I'm pretty sure that we're going to see this new DS action concept with extreme shock resistance or whatever the term is there start to make its way across other Certina DS models in the future. But this is the first one to feature it.
What do you think about the size? Does it work well at 40? The proportions seem weird. I can't tell if it wears big or small. It's very odd. I don't know why I can't tell.
It looks bloated.
It's a little bit of both. On the NATO, they give you a nice NATO. It's quite thick, but it does lift the watch up off the wrist a bit more. So it wears a little bit tall. It's not, but when you actually look at the watch, it's not like ungainly or disproportional, but especially when you have it on the wrist on the NATO, it does feel a little bit taller than I'd like. I'd probably, if it was mine, either offer the bracelet or put it on like a two-piece strap to just sort of get around that. But it feels thick. It looks thick. It's not actually all that thick, and with a curved case back, it's not going to be terrible on the wrist. Yeah, this is the image was referencing. The green parts are the three components that are part of the DS system. The first one's just the crystal that's reinforced mounted, but that middle plate there is the one that absorbs the shocks on the front side, and then that green square ring thing is the one that secures it from the sides and the reverse. I like these. Honestly, for like $800 is where they more or less start out. It seems like a pretty good value proposition within the realm of Swatch Corp. You get the Powermatic 80 movement. You get 300 meters of water resistance. You get this interesting shock resistant thing that they're doing. And if you want the full titanium version on a bracelet, it still comes in under $1,000. So, is it a generic kind of derivative design? Sure. This is what so many dive watches look like. So I don't really think that's that big of a knock. But what you're getting for it is quite compelling. 80 hours of Swatch Corp Powermatic movement, and, not necessarily the obvious choice when it comes to a diver, or at least not in America, where Certina has very little retail presence.
So here's the bigger question for me. Swatch Group, I think, is killing it at these price points. They have excellent Swiss-made products that feature nice designs, good materials, exclusive movements with a lot of performance for a lot of great prices, under $2,000 here, under $1,000. The competition for me in this space is ironically some of the indie brands and things like that, where Certina and the colleague Swatch Group brands at this price point are going to offer huge edges in quality, but they're also going to be held back in terms of storytelling. What does a company like Certina need to do to better compete with others in this space for the type of customers that would want something at this price point?
Well, have a bigger retail presence in America would probably be just first off my list right there.
You mean people need to buy them?
Have the ability to buy them is probably the first and foremost thing, because they feel quite solid. If you put this in someone's hand, similar to like a PRX, it feels good at the price point. It's a strong value proposition, but in an industry where there are literally hundreds of thousands of dollars of compelling, solid divers in the $700 to $1,000 price, you do want to kind of see these in person, because when you see it in person and experience it, you're like, this is quite good. And I think that is what would separate it from a micro that might not have the same economies of scale for certain components, or be able to use the Powermatic 80 version of the movement that gives you the longer power reserve. But that and some more storytelling, I think, is really just kind of the only two missing ingredients from some of these lower tier Swatch Corp brands like Certina and Mito that are so easily forgotten about, and certainly in America eclipsed by like Hamilton and Tissot that have a much larger presence.
I think they're being held back by some text that I remember on the Seagull website. Remember the Okeanos, the ultra professional, ultra deep, ultra 1,000 meter, ultra?
How could we forget?
They said on there that I think they promised that watch would satisfy the requirements of a $5,000 to $50,000 dive watch. Certina needs to make a similar claim. So if you're accustomed to a $100,000 dive watch, we have all the diviness that you need right here.
5 million G resistant. But actually, yeah, it's down to storytelling. I don't think that just because a product is relatively cheap, they should be cheaping out on on storytelling. I think there's so much to be said. It says DS action on it, but then to find that exploded view of the case construction, the movement construction, etc., that are in these articles, they are quite difficult. It's not that easy, and it's not convincing to just see them once. I think Certina should be doubling, tripling down on this message and be like, okay, here we have a really cool technology that we developed ourselves. Basically, the message is, have you always wanted a G-Shock but mechanical? This might just be your best bet. I know they cannot say G-Shock, but, they could somehow lean into this message a little bit. And it's just
they could
lost
say
everywhere.
DS Shock. Huh?
Shock. Yeah, that's...
Also, this
D-Shock
is nearing Rolex levels of text on the dial. I mean, this has to beg many questions. People see these many words, they're going to get curious. What is going on here? I don't know what DS action is,
How do
but
I
I
get
need
in
to
on
know.
that DS action?
Yes, exactly. What does Certina have that I don't? Yeah, I like these. I'm glad to hear that you enjoyed it as well. I root for them to be a little bit more popular, to be a little bit more well-known. I think we have one.
Same. Well, I think last thing on Certina, to David's point, that exploded parts diagram that I included in the article was not in the press packet for those watches. It was in a totally separate press release they did about that DS concept. And I'm looking at the watch, and it was almost like a footnote. Oh, we've got the new Extreme DS thing. I'm like, well, what is that? I go to a different press release from them, and then I see the exploded parts. And it's so much more interesting when they're able to bring you into the fold a little bit on it. But in the sea of dive watches, they really have to hit that messaging a little harder to let people know that it's even in there. I think I know what DS stands for. Data search. Get in on some data search action, because that's what you're going to have to do. Yeah, data search. Oh, yeah. We're going to work with some databases tonight. Yes, but that's for all of you out there, DS clearly means data search action. There's a lot of, for a desk diver who is on their keyboard, data search, it makes sense.
Yeah, it works.
And another desk diver, not for everyone wearing this, just 80, 90%. This is the Squale 2001, nothing to do with the movie, sadly, though it could have had a red dial. That would have been fun. But I think the claim to fame of this otherwise very competent dive watch is the ladder style dial, which people go crazy for. That Zenith one that people were paying ungodly amounts of money. This is far less and Italian, which makes it desirable. $1,600 here. Desirable overall, just the bracelet, not the bracelet. David, you first.
I don't know. I feel like you're wearing a lot of watch, but not getting that much in return. It's just a lot of wrist real estate. It's heavy, but it's just as I said it. That's my take.
So many atmospheres.
Yeah, you do get a lot of atmospheres. That's true.
So many. Yeah. Also 2 Squales, double Squale.
It's so funny when brands do double sign dials. It's like, why?
Ripley, do you also Squale twice?
Oh, I Squale. I Squale at least twice. It's because they put so much text. By the time you read the first brand logo at the upper half, you've forgotten who made the watch. By the time you get to the bottom and need a quick reminder.
Oh my goodness.
I think these are quite interesting. I think the kind of one of the reasons why people like Squale is because they used to make cases for other brands, and so it's sort of like that inside baseball way of having a watch that was, a case that was normally on a more expensive watch at a more affordable price. I think it's quite interesting. These ladder bracelets, though, are you love them in concept. You're like, oh, that's cool, that's unique. And then you see them on the wrist of a really hairy dude, and there's these like tiny afros like peeking out from all around the bracelet. It's kind of the hair gets stuck in it.
Look cool on the wetsuit only, right?
Yeah. It's even on my wrist, where there's not much hair at all, it doesn't. Like when there's the honey baked ham and there's like the net stretched over it. It's kind of can't help but shake
You know
that
what
appearance.
it is? It's the dial skeletonization of bracelets. It's the skeletonized bracelet. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Ladder? No. Skeletonized.
I wanted more wrist in the appearance of my watch. How do we get that around the bracelet too?
All the bracelet, but more nude. More nude.
Double Squale nude.
Okay.
It's a way to show off a little bit. Okay, not for everyone, but
Show
you know,
some skin.
It's
Imagine the tan lines you get from this. Then it's just from the box.
that I want to see.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. For some weird reason, now is the time, Ariel. I mean, it's only May. I mean, it's barely June by the time this goes out. So you have all summer to wear this. Develop those tan box.
I think that needs to be a weird thing. Show off basically I'm thinking of like a watch tan competition.
Yes.
Like something where you have, I don't know if it's like the weirdest one or the most attractive one or the most prominent one, like the biggest contrast from light area to dark area.
We can have different categories, like a dog show. There can be the best in show, but each will have its respective one.
I'm just going to volunteer Squale to basically be the winner for this contest.
Yeah,
I will make sure this happens. Look, I'm having the CEO on the Superlative podcast soon. I'm just going to basically quickly run it by him.
Just have him
fast.
launch this competition on Instagram to their customers. Like, you know, just now is the time. Prepare your Squale tan lines.
Less details I tell him, the better. But we're going to have this. If we have enough of these pictures, I will get the winner a Squale. I'm going to do it. I'll figure it out. I don't know how. But if we have enough to have a wrist tan competition by this summer, Rick is going to decide. Ultimately, if Rick thinks there's enough for a competition, we'll do it. But don't burn your skin, but amuse us is the point. Okay, thank you, Squale. You didn't even know you signed up for this, and you did. If you have a tan that actually looks like the smiling shark body logo, that might be it. That might be it. Do not tattoo that. No. Okay.
People are going to go out and get a tan with like masking tape on their skin. With
you know what I just realized? I've been doing this for, like 18 years now, and I spend a lot of time still reading media. And I recognize that a lot of the people that started doing media when I was doing it still are doing it. So I feel like I had this weird feeling, like a pre-flashback that in the future, 20 years from now, we're still going to be reviewing whatever for inflation is like $1,000 to $2,000 dive watches. For time immemorial, as long as there's civilization, Western civilization, they're going to be coming out with dive watches of some type, and they're going to look relatively similar. And I'm just wondering what we're going to be able to be saying about them 20 years from now, Because people are still going to want these things.
We're having fun now, and we had fun 10 years ago. So there's a chance we might have some fun 10 years from now. Maybe they put a third Squale logo on it.
So, when do we actually get to do the 100th anniversary of the dive watch? Because that's the anniversary that I want to make fun of the most.
What would be 53?
I mean, if you calculate from the
1953.
If you calculate from the Omega Marine that came out in 1931 too, something like that.
Okay, you can't use leather as like a water resistant thing. That's not gonna. Or is that the canteen screw one?
That was the one in the little box, right?
Yeah.
You had to pull out with the leather gaskets. Yeah, you eat leather gaskets. I'm gonna say that. Let's say 1953.
I found it on a bracelet.
Well, I think 53.
How do you feel now?
I think 53 is the year because it's the first purpose-built dive watch, not the first one the first one with the traits that we all think
not the
of
first
today.
swimming watch. We know Rolex with the Oyster. We get it. But the dive watch. Okay, so in 2053, I have no idea what we'll be doing, but statistically speaking, we will be reviewing dive watches. We have to do something. We have to do some grand thing. We have some time to prepare for it, but this is going to be the industry. Screw the 163rd anniversary of blah, blah, blah brand. No. The 100th anniversary of the dive watch, we're going to have to spend time underwater.
Rolex launched the Hermetic back in 1922, So that had its 100th anniversary 3 years ago, but not even Rolex seemed to have cared because it was basically a gem jar with a watch movement in it. Because you had to like put actually a lid on it that you had to unscrew every time to wind the watch in, because it was hand wound. You had to like do this thing all the time.
Sterilize the room.
Yeah.
Didn't it have like lead gaskets or something like that as well?
Yeah. Yeah, both. Yeah, not radioactive yet, but probably lead. You got a gentle lead poisoning from wearing it, probably. That's so fun.
Anniversaries. Okay. I think that's it that we want to talk about for this week. So hopefully that's enough watch content, guys. I think, again, the summer is kicking up to be very, very busy. We have a lot more things coming up. So Geneva Watch Days, we already know, is going to be the end of the summer. So we have a bunch of releases up until Geneva Watch Days in early September that will be out, which there'll be a bazillion brands already showing up there. We've already started to make fun of it. So we'll probably talk a little bit more about that the next show. But live show will be back next week with Rick. Rick?
Yes.
We hope you're doing well out there. We know you're missing us. We're missing you. Ripley, David, people who listened, thank you so much.
And don't forget to send us your tan line wrist shots. Tag us
tan line.
Yeah, tag us on Instagram, and then Jake is going to be so confused when a bunch of just these very, very tan wrists are being tagged for our account. But yeah, please do. We want to see how stern your ladder bracelet tan line has gotten over this summer.
And I have to have a reminder. We need a little bit more activity on the survey so that we can give out our next watches. So we want to give out more watches for the aBlogtoWatch survey. So go to the website if you haven't already. Take the time to fill out the survey. We'll appreciate it. The data coming in is already fantastic. But yeah, I can't wait until we can stop reminding you about the survey. Until then, if you have it, fill out the survey. All right, guys. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.